Okay, see if you can get in now.
It still says waiting, but this is what happened to me the other day when I tried to get in before you. I had to go out and come back in. Oh wait, now it's gonna let me. Last time I had to go out and come back in.
Hey, Dylan. Can do that. There we go. It worked. So we're going to be so excited to begin officially our network, although we know that we've been having a network at GREC forever. That's what we do at GREC. So Elizabeth Brown, will you please put up our slide deck and we'll get started? Oh, it's so wonderful seeing your faces. It's hard for me to let go of your faces to put that slide deck up, but there we go. So here we are together. Of course, today is April the 16th, and this is our first meeting. We originally hoped to be together on March the 27th, 2 weeks ago, but we're so happy that we could come together today, and then we're going to come together again in a couple of weeks and honor our original dates that we had for our Birth to Three network. So moving on, I'm Jamie Spagnardi, and I'm with GREC, and many of you I've known for a long time and have enjoyed being colleagues of yours and working together. But there's some folks today on the call that I don't think I've personally met, and it's so nice to see your name and hopefully get to know you better over the course of this work together. So let's go to the next slide. When we look at Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, you'll notice that Piglet is all dressed up. Piglet has on her full outfit. But you know, Winnie the Pooh usually just wears their top. So I thought that was fun to talk about since everybody's been making fun of Zoom meetings, like wondering, do we have on our full outfit? Well, I promise you, we all have on our full outfits. We're being like Piglet. So hope you enjoy that humor today. And we want to say at GREC, we would love to give you a big hug. We are touchy-feely people, and we miss being able to see you. We miss being able to have conversations with you. So we're so happy for this virtual environment so that we can. So I'm going to ask you to click on your chat box. When your chat box opens up, you're going to see an attendance form. And Amanda Turner and Beth have worked so hard at GREC to help us with this environment. And so that you'll be able to click on that attendance form, enter your information, and we'll have record of you attending, of course, but more importantly, then you'll have your ELA certificate. And you'll have then some professional development time then that you'll have that certificate for. So having said that, we're going to first have Allison talk to us just a little bit about Allison, of course, Allison Bemis, and she is one of our GREC team members. She's going to talk to us just a little bit about this unprecedented time and about how things are different than we ever thought when we first planned this network.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I have somehow clicked a magical button and made my PowerPoint be approximately an inch big. So I never knew that was possible, but that's good. So we just wanted to start out today by telling you that, you know, we are in an unprecedented time, and we had planned 18 hours of hands-on, minds-on experiences with you, and then the global pandemic happened. And we decided that those ideas were no longer the best ideas. So we really wanted to start out by remembering that you guys are at the lowest levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And those are the safety and security. And we wanted to point that out because that's exactly where our families are now too. So just like we threw out our original plans for this type of NTI, Professional Development Day, we know that that's what you're doing in your districts now too. So everything that we will share with you today was planned with that in mind. So we just wanted to honor that up front to say, just like you guys are working so hard to know where your kids and your families are now, we wanted to do that for you today. And so everything that we'll share with you as far as experiences, what do you need to know for early childhood, it's going to be done through the lens of we're now working in this safety, security, physiological needs, things we never thought we'd have to worry about. Parents with resources, parents have lost their jobs. They're going to bed thinking about, can I even get, toilet paper? Can I even get enough hamburger meat for my family? And we're asking them to provide instruction for their kids at home. So we know you're in those places, we're in those places. We want to honor that and say everything we're doing today is going to be done through that lens. So thank you for taking the time to join us for this call.
Thank you, Allison. And something else Allison had said earlier, we just all need to remember to give each other a little grace. And we're going to need a lot of grace today when you think about how that we hope that we meet your needs and we don't talk you to death. But when we think about this network, we at GREC have been working, of course, for many, many years with setting up networks. And we recognize, though, that in particular, that you as early childhood folks, as elementary schools and as directors of child cares and directors of Head Starts, that you've been meeting challenges for a long time. Meeting a challenge is not new to you. You've always known your children were at different levels. You've always known that you need to change your practices to meet those needs. But what is new is that now we're being asked and being charged to work with children from birth to age 5 when they're not even in our buildings yet. Or maybe that when you're in childcare, for instance, you're being asked to provide services to parents, even if they're not paying their bills. All these kinds of pressures are on us. Another pressure that we have is that, yes, the literacy rates and the problem-solving rates for the end of grade 3 are being published. Kindergarten readiness is being published. And we know that even at the federal level, they're building prisons based upon that proficiency rate at end of grade 3. So the pressure is greater than ever before. For a long time, we talked about closing that achievement gap and high expectations for all, but now we've added growth for everyone. And of course, that's where our heart should be. We want growth for everyone, but how do we do this? They haven't given us more money to do it. In fact, we have fewer funds than ever to do this powerful work. So, another concern that we have, and we have teachers talking to us, we have principals talking to us, we have district administrators, we have childcare folks talking to us, talking about how this pushing down of these academic standards on younger and younger children without considering development appropriateness is not being what's best for our kids. And we're seeing it over and over. We're seeing kindergarten classrooms lose their centers. We're seeing third grade classrooms without place value pieces, without math manipulatives. We're seeing so much happen in regard to pushing things down, paper, pencil, when really we know developmentally appropriateness and what should happen. An example recently that I was in a public school preschool, and the teacher was showing me her data that she was collecting with her series that she's collecting, and it was all about alphabet knowledge. She said, many of my kids, now some of her kids know all their alphabet, and they're ready to work on alphabet knowledge, but a lot of our children still need to spend a lot of time with phonemic awareness. We know what happens if you move too quickly and you only memorize alphabet letters and you don't know their sound or understand the purpose of sound and rhyme, that's going to build and have fluency problems in reading later. Same thing's true with mathematics. We know and understand that if you just go into addition, and you've not spent time sorting and patterning, that later when our kids are intermediate, they're having problems with fractions. They're having problems with proportional reasoning because they've not looked at what real number is and not just a numeral and how those add together. The pressure with that is that you can have some quick time gains. You can show some result when you teach kids to memorize things when they're very young, but then those big concept problems come later. And that pressure is really tough on our early childhood community. We really want to address that. So, how did this all come about? Well, we are fortunate that both GREC and KVEC, that's our neighboring co-op to the east, were approached by the Kentucky Department of Education and the Governor's Office of Early Childhood. They reached out to us and they said, you know, we've been watching you. You guys at GREC and KVEC have been working with your folks for a long time in networking. You've also been doing some early childhood work that shows that you understand development appropriateness and some things. And so we have these materials that we would like to push out to middle management types of folks, building level leaders, whether that's in a public school, or whether it's in a community. Maybe it's Head Start, or maybe it's child care, or maybe it's the big red school at Western. We have Beth. So, you know, all of our community folks, how do we get these recommendations out? And so there's a link on this slide, and it is to the National Association, or from the National Association for Elementary School Principals. And it takes you to a competency guide. So what happened is the National Association for Elementary School Principals heard the call from their members and said, you know, these things are happening to us in the elementary school and we need some help. So they had a white paper in 2014, and from that white paper grew out these competencies. They have been working through many states in the United States and presenting coaching to building level leaders about how to set up a vision for your early childhood programs that go from birth to grade 3. Sometimes when we say early childhood, people think preschool, but this is much bigger than that. So when we want you to know that the Department of Education and the Governor's Office of Early Childhood, they wish us to have this common conversation, to talk about visioning, to look at rich content and interdisciplinary study, and they want us to hear from practicing principals, and that's what we're going to do today. So our network, as Allison said earlier, it's going to be very different than we'd first planned. But we're going to have this meeting, and then we're going to have another hour-long Zoom meeting on April 30th. We have a Google site that we're going to share with you in just a few minutes, and that's going to be a repository for lots of resources, even some online PD you might decide to use. We will co-design as a network all the future supports because we don't know the environment we're going to be in yet. If we should be allowed to come back together in September, we have planned a beautiful experience for your teachers, and this funding from the state would pay for their registration, admission, the materials, and substitute pay even for one person for each of you to send. And we will have an opportunity for you to work on a micro-credential if you're interested, and we're doing that through a partnership with KVEC. They're being a great partner with us because they've been doing this for a while. Again, we have ELA, PD, and even TRIS credit available for these experiences should you be interested. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go through the first 3 competencies in an overview fashion. We're going to have practitioners on the line that are going to spotlight particular things that are within the competencies. Then we're going to share our Google site, and we're going to poll you for common needs. Okay, so now's the time for us to hear your voice in the chat box. So, you know, we all love to talk about our own programs, and often we hear this, we have a great early childhood program. So let me ask you this, if you were to see and hear children and see and hear adults inside a great early childhood program that could be from birth to grade 3, what would you see or hear going on? Would you please type that in the chat box, and let's all look at our chat box. Oh, love to see your voices. Oh, so nice to see your ideas come forward. You know, when we look at NAESP, oh, keep going, keep going. I'll be quiet a moment. When we look at what NAESP has for a vision, it's very similar to yours. Let's look at that. Let's look at the next slide. You will notice the parts that are underlined are just in sync with exactly what you said. It represents active people, happy. Oh my goodness. When I see all your descriptive words there, it makes me miss the classroom so much. Wouldn't we give anything to be able to be with our children again and to be able to see their faces busy? I know you're seeing them through all kinds of Google Hangouts and Zoom, but there's nothing like if we could reach out and touch them again. But we will be back someday and we'll be able to touch those children again. But you'll notice that it represents all the domains, including social and emotional growth as well. Now we're going to listen a little bit to Elizabeth Brown, and she's the Director of Instructional Programs at Bowling Green Independent. And let me tell you about Elizabeth a little bit. She is someone that I've known for a long time. When she was principal at Chandler's Chapel Elementary and Middle School, that they're unique in Logan County. When she was at Logan County, they were a preschool through 8th grade center. So she really had a lot going on in that building. But I worked with her when I was working at GREC, and then when I worked at the Department of Education, I also worked with Elizabeth. She served on our Blue Ribbon panel then with the commissioner's office. And we were in her classrooms quite a bit with GREC with early reading first, and look, they were able to increase their public schools preschool to all day, every day through that program. And so we've had so much time together, and we worked together at Race to the Top, and she was a program manager at that time. And now Elizabeth's in Bowling Green. And when we thought about these competencies and we thought about all the things that she's done in her new role there, and I say new because she's changed her role a few times there, and she's been working with staff, she's going to share with us about competencies 1 and 2 and some of the things that they're doing. Take it away, Elizabeth.
Okay, good morning. I'd like, if you have questions, if I'm going too fast, I find this kind of awkward. I'm sure you do too. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat box, or if you just want to send it privately to me, I won't mention that Kyle Cassidy had a question if he's the one. I'll just say someone submitted a question. So please feel free to ask. So I'm going to begin with a quick overview of competency 1 and 2. And then I'm going to share with you some concrete examples of how we're working on that in Bowling Green. So you can see on the slide the 5 areas of competency 1, which is embracing the pre-K through grade 3 early learning continuum. The big idea of competency 1, I feel like for building leaders, is that you have to really have a vision for what high quality early learning looks like in your building. Or if you're a preschool provider that's maybe not in the building with other grades, where do you fit in that continuum? And you could be in a building where you've not had the vision articulated from your district or your governing body. So it's real vital that you as the leader in your own setting be able to articulate what that looks like. And you not only have to have that concept and vision, but you have to share it in a way that teachers can embrace it themselves and carry it out. It has to be very concrete. And I think what happens more often than not is that we really have great intentions to make this happen, but we get interrupted by things from the state or our district. We get mandates and initiatives that really distract us away from what's best. And I think Jamie gave some good examples of classrooms that maybe don't have manipulatives, or preschools that might have lost their focus. So it's very easy to get off track. But when we do have those mandates and initiatives that come down, they always will. It's real important that if we know what the early learning continuum looks like in our building, is to filter the new work we're asked to do through this continuum to make sure it fits in with the vision and what's best for our students. I think more often than not, we as principals, and I can speak from being that principal, you have all these plates that are spinning at once. And what ends up in the article that we've shared with you, the link Jamie shared, it talks about what happens is we become patchwork. We end up with a patchwork of early learning initiatives or programs or mandates, and it leads our teachers to serve more than one master. And when that happens, they may lose focus on the priority of what's best for our students. Another problem by not having that clear vision of this continuum and what it looks like in your building would be that you could also have conflicting budget needs. And in the end, your students, you'll spend money on things that maybe shouldn't have been the priority, that weren't developmentally appropriate for your students. So it's real important that you as the leader really establish the vision that will move your students from this patchwork of initiatives and undertake a real seamless early learning continuum that supports everything that's part of your vision. You really want to have the end in mind. What does this look like in your setting? Wherever you are in your setting, what does this look like and how is this best aligned to your students' needs? Part of competency one, I believe, is that you really have to rethink your views on preschool. I think artificially we have separated preschool from K-3 because KDE and other entities separates preschool. They have different operating standards, but that doesn't mean it should be disconnected from your K-3 program. And so I challenge you to begin to look at that and see it as one continuum and have a vision and real concrete steps to help your preschool connect to K-3, even if there are programmatic things that do separate you. This will begin to create that seamless transition between preschool and your K-3 and take out the artificial part of that that's been created by governing bodies. As competency one explains, you also have to be very mindful of what this looks like for all your students so that there's equity. So what does this early learning continuum look like for a student in poverty, an English learner, a student that's been in trauma? What does this look like? And so the more clear you are in your vision and how you share it with teachers, the more likely it will be embraced in the day-to-day work. It really will become clear in competency one that pre-K is the foundation to success in later learning, and it really allows you to set that expectation. Another part of competency one is really empowering your learning community. Everyone that's a stakeholder in your program needs to feel a part of that vision and feel a shared responsibility to carrying out the early learning continuum. Principals, you really need to see beyond your school walls and don't just think about your teachers, but you need to be someone who finds those outside resources and stakeholders that will empower and improve your program. And as you build this network, both internally with your teachers and staff, but externally with other partners that support your vision, you will just naturally strengthen resources. And I know you know that. I think this is a really big task in competency one. And it's a part you could take for granted, but you really need to invest in time to become a learner about the continuum. If this maybe isn't your strength, let's say that you came from as a principal, you went from a middle school classroom to principal, and maybe early learning is not your particular strength, but it's time for you to invest in learning this so that you'll know what to look for in tangible ways within your school. You really do have to become a learner, and that's something I think I have always been. I'm always trying to find a way to learn so that I can implement something better, and that's a recommendation in competency one. And then once you feel like you know what the early learning continuum looks like, it will make it easier for you to make it concrete and measurable within your building. You will be able to give feedback to teachers about their developmentally appropriate teaching and feel more confident in that. You could even set up measurable outcomes such as all your students reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. But as you learn, think about how you can make this concrete, and then also how you can measure your success and know that you're on the right track. And feel free to put questions in the comments section or in the chat. Competency 2 is about that developmentally appropriate teaching that should be occurring. You really are responsible as the building leader to make sure that's happening. And we know that the most important thing we can do is put that very effective teacher in every classroom. So when you have those effective teachers, they really have to understand what good instruction looks like, and they have to know how to make it happen, but always in terms of developmentally appropriateness. I think Jamie mentioned it very well, that we've not had the environment that's led to this in the last few years. I have seen in our district a lot of new teachers to the profession. As they come out of their college prep, they lack some of this information. For example, they're not sure what's developmentally appropriate when teaching reading, and they're not sure how to make that happen. Part of that then is your responsibility to make sure that you connect them with quality professional learning, that you articulate what you're expecting of them. And I think because we've had a lack of professional development funds, our rich knowledge base has dried up in a way. And so it's real important that you allocate those funds for learning for teachers that need that support. In Competency 2, it really talks about that when you can give the teachers the right resources to accomplish developmentally appropriate teaching, you're going to see them be more successful. So it's also about you looking at the environment. Do your teachers have the manipulatives? Is your curriculum developmentally appropriate? And then you have to follow up by being in the classroom to support those teachers, give them specific feedback and coaching to make sure it's happening. As I read Competency 1 and 2, it really makes me think about a systems approach, which is my philosophy is that it's a system that has to work together to make this happen. And so you need to think about, as you enact Competency 1 and 2, that you develop a flexible system that teachers can follow. They can identify gaps in their students' learning. They have the knowledge of what to do in those situations, and they have the resources to help learning happen developmentally appropriate. It really stresses in Competency 2 that the principal, either alone or with their district, could become very disjointed in developmentally appropriate teaching if they don't have a guaranteed and viable curriculum. And that's something we've been working on. I'm going to share some of our resources with you about. So it's real important that you make sure that you can be the instructional leader, you can help teachers to monitor student progress and learning, and that you really help teachers articulate what it is that they should be learning at each grade level and how that looks that's developmentally appropriate. Also, don't forget in Competency 2 the non-cognitive piece. It's a heavy focus on the curriculum in Competency 2, but your instructional program does not need to leave out the non-cognitive. And that's very easy for us to miss, especially as you move towards 3rd grade when K-Prep starts. I even hear teachers say things like, I can't get to some of the non-cognitive, or I can't teach thinking because I have to teach the standards. And so it's really, really important that we articulate what that looks like and how we can be developmentally appropriate in teaching the curriculum and still get to high standards. The last piece of this I would ask you to consider is how strong is the vehicle of the PLC in your building to make this happen. And so part of Competency 2 is the professional learning community. We have both PLCs in our district and communities of practice. And I know a couple of our principals are on here, and they probably are laughing because I'll say, do you have real PLCs? And a lot of people, let's just be honest, we have PLCs in name only. But what happens is when you have a true PLC, you shift your teachers from a compliance to true collaboration and true ownership of developmentally appropriate teaching. So I really strongly encourage you to reflect on your PLC work within your building and make sure that it is what PLCs were intended to be, and you'll be surprised the difference in your teaching and the outcomes. So I'm looking to see if I have any questions. Okay. This was a quote I took from Competency 1 and 2, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this as we move forward. I don't have a great example I can show you on your screen, but learning is cumulative. And I think what has happened that I have observed is we have pushed out science and social studies to the back burner in early childhood for the sake of RTI. And so I strongly encourage you to think about where that is in your K through 3 programs. I feel like it's probably stronger in your preschools, but where is that early learning happening that builds that science and social studies excitement for later on? And so one of the things we have done as a district is we have reallocated time, and I don't have anything to show you, but we've actually taken every grade span's school schedule and repurpose time. And I've shared a link on our website to Able Schools. We've been using a consultant from here in Kentucky, Marilyn Crawford, to help us look at time differently. And so now we don't have it's not really a time where teachers can say, I don't have time to teach science or social studies, because we know we've made that time happen. So that's one of the things you can do. So here are some systems that we put in place, and I'm going to share. I'm just going to share some of the things we're doing. Please ask questions. It does seem like I'm talking to myself over here. So I'm going to share with you some things we started 2 years ago. So I ask why. I'm not a very good compliance person, because we all know that we've been asked to do things that we knew weren't right. And the CSIP and CDIPs are these artificial plans. So we 2 years ago asked our building principals to think differently about their CSIP and CDIP. And so as you can see, our CDIP looks like nothing on KDE's website. However, I can go and talk to about any teacher in our district and they know what's on it. And our principals know what's on their CSIPs, and they're very living documents. And so we did true needs assessments. We didn't follow maybe the steps KDE would have liked, but we had true needs assessments, and we came up with 2 goals. We felt like our curriculum could be aligned so much better, and plus we had new standards coming out. And so we are still in the process because this is a real authentic plan. It's going to go for at least another year, if not 2, and we know we want to accomplish it quickly. It helps our teachers to know our vision, because the plan doesn't change and it's not artificial. And so as you can see, we have curriculum alignment, which goes to competency 2, and then equity. We felt like we really want to take a step back. We're honest that we feel like our EL program has changed dramatically over the last 10 or 15 years to where we have over 50 languages spoken, and we feel like we can do a better job than we're doing. So those are some of the things we've done. But I think asking our building principals to think differently about what their buildings actually need versus filling out a CDIP or a CSIP for compliance has helped us focus on our vision. Like Competency 1 states. I'm going to show you a couple tools where we have an internal website now where we have aligned our curriculum maps. When I came to Bowling Green, we had some stagnant curriculum maps, like most districts have. You make one, and then you don't touch it again until the new standards come out. And so we've explained our philosophy is that standards and curriculum maps need to be always in draft form, and we want everyone to have a hand in creating them. I want that if I have a new 3rd grade teacher next year, they can bookmark this page and they have everything they need. And so we're in the process of finalizing these. By August 1st, we're going to have very robust curriculum maps for all grade levels. You can see we have a few more. They're blank, but we're not finished. And then we're articulating some expectations, and we're still focused K K-10 right now, but we'll be reaching into preschool in the next few months, talking about where's the alignment. And we're articulating what are the basic outs or the things students should leave kindergarten with. And we've started with the high school and worked back from the end in mind. So we're really trying to articulate that, what is reasonable, and you can see we're asking, first grade has questions for kindergarten. We're really just having some great horizontal and vertical alignment. And we're also avoiding where a few people make curriculum maps. That's usually how we did it in the past, would be a few people from each building participated and we sent them out. Every teacher's been invited to the table, and 130 teachers out of our 280 staff members are participating in this. So teachers have been wonderful to help. Another thing we're doing is we're really using websites such as What Works, Clearinghouse, and some others that really are helping us to see what's evidence-based. And so when people want to spend their budget dollars, we go and we look at the research behind the products we are putting into our classrooms. And so, for example, if there's a product that has no evidence that it works in K-3 or preschool, we're not going to be purchasing that. So we're really asking everyone to think differently about how they're spending their money. And that's a district vision. Mr. Fields talks about it, I talk about it, building principals talk about it, and we're really trying to set that vision, articulate what is appropriate for the students you serve. Couple more things before I wrap up here. We are participating in Bright Bites. You may recognize the Clarity logo from your some of the work we do with the state for the school report card, but we are using Clarity and for looking at how we use our technology dollars, and that has really opened up our budgets. We had a lot of money being spent on programs that weren't being used, and for about a year we just monitored what computer programs our staff was using. We're able to go in now and say, for example, here is something we're using that's $191 per user. Is that really how we want to spend our money? Or here's something that's about $3. I think if a teacher came to you and said, we want to spend $191 per student, you would say no. But this program allows us to see how are we spending our money and is it cost effective? It also tells us things that we don't have engagement on, or what's our lowest investment. And we've been able to share this with our principals who are now prioritizing their spending better. I know our principals that are on here would probably say that we've freed up some money for them. We've given them talking points to say, your teachers say they need this. Well, you could free up money from a computer program that no one's using. We're also working on how we communicate our vision. So for example, our internal websites, we have our curriculum map website I showed you, but we're also doing things for each of the content areas where we're articulating what is our vision, what's our expectation, what do we want students to know and to be able to do, and then all of our coaching in the classroom, we reference back to this. We reference the materials that we believe are most appropriate, and we coach teachers to do that. So as I wrap up, I don't see any questions, but we've added this link to your website today. It's on page 9 of the P3 framework, and we suggest that if you haven't articulated your vision for what the continuum looks like in your building, that you use page 11 to think back to who do I need to involve in this? How can I help everyone know explicitly what it is that they're responsible for? So whether it's a teacher, a classified staff member, an outside partner, how will you measure that success, and so forth. I kind of skipped over some of my slides, but we went from being random to where we have went through and we have stopped using programs that we felt like were conflicting, and we have worked to really align to everything being very intentional. I will share one last thing with you is I mentioned being a learner. And when I was at Greg a few years ago, I spent most of my time at the high school level doing that work. And so when I came back and began working with elementaries again, I really had to get back in and brush up on things. I strongly suggest these books for you as building leaders. Use this if your PLCs are not where they need to be. If you need to develop vision, Fierce Conversations really helps with that. Clarifying your RTI expectations. Of course, this is about systems. And I just finished The Infinite Game. I highly recommend this to leaders because you really need to look at it as it's a long game. I'm planning things now as a vision that I will not be here to see finished because I hope to retire eventually. So as a building leader, you really do need to think about you're playing the long game and how can you make your vision come to life. So I think we're going to move into personalized learning.
Okay, Elizabeth, did you want to talk about this quote or do we want to move on to the? Okay. All right, so one thing that I was going to do if we met face to face was I was going to, after Elizabeth, and that was all wonderful information. Thank you for explaining the importance of PLCs and how we can really get our focus to be narrowed down on things that are really effective for kids. One thing that I was asked to do was to plan a model experience for what a pre-K through third grade lesson would look like that's aligned to standards, but also promotes rigorous thinking. When this happened, and what I had planned to do was very hands-on, from hands-on STEAM or inspiring innovation. It was not something that we could do with you in front of Zoom. And it wouldn't have been appropriate if we'd mailed out activities and we were talking about aerodynamic engineering. That's not what you need to hear about right now. That's not what you're sending home for your kids to do right now. So we changed it. And just like I started talking with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we decided, okay, so what does rigorous and quality instruction look like now that we're in NTI? And so we took a little time researching, kind of reflecting, and we have created, I'm gonna go through this quickly, but I'm available for questions later. We've created some crowd resources that, and if you will go on and go to the next slide, that's just a screenshot of the PD. I'll show you where that links in just a minute. If you're not familiar with Crowd, it's a wonderful interactive read aloud strategy that takes children through various levels of blooms and questioning. These are questions you can write with a book that kids can enjoy all week, because we know with interactive read alouds with young children, they should hear a book more than once. And the families would discuss these. It starts with the lower level of completion and recall, but by the end, it moves to them making connections and inferences where they're connecting the story to their own life. And Elizabeth, if you'll move on to the next one. This is what it looks like with Pete the Cat. So I've chosen, or Jamie and Melanie, we've chosen 3 books that are high interest and kids have likely had experience with before. Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes, Click Clack Moo, Cows That Type, and If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. Those were all books we felt like children had probably seen before. And so for an example, it would be, did Pete cry? Well, the kids can all complete that and say, goodness, no. But then in the end, like as you move through the levels of questioning, it's, did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Well, when is the time you have been upset and you needed to choose to be calm like Pete did? So you see how we are boosting the rigorous thinking while still in an NTI experience in a way that's not threatening to families. I don't have standards on there. I don't have, this is actually a low-tech assignment. Although I'm gonna send it out through technology, I'm not putting kids on a screen to do this, and we're encouraging rigorous thinking and rigorous discussion. So if you'll move on to the next slide. And then we extend this by think-tac-toe. This was a strategy I actually learned with my work with gifted children, but it works beautifully for all children. And we do this through the lens of a family choice board. A think-tac-toe, the children and families will choose 3 assignments. So they don't do all the assignments because that's not, what we're trying to do is promote choice and letting them work on some of those thinking strategies where they will reflect together as a family and choose the things that they want to do. So I have yoga on there. I have STEAM on there. I have drawing on there. Now, where it says draw together, you know that when they're doing a directed drawing, what they're actually working on is listening comprehension. But you'll see I put the softer words there on family. So as a teacher, I'm in control and I know what strategies that they're working on. I also can create that so it's aligned where if they're getting a think-tac-toe and different, then I can make sure they have a science experience, a math experience in whatever level. So you actually still have quite a bit of choice, although they think they have all the choices. Okay. Now, why are we doing this through a family lens? Anything at all you are sending home to a preschooler through probably 3rd grade, they are needing prompts and cues. I promise you, I live with them to do this. If you are sending something home that they can just do independently, like a worksheet, that's fine. That's okay to do sometimes. But really, what you want to model here is this family literacy experiences, because for the most part, you have families at home together. As I shared with you, you're also in a period of really high stress for families. So what you send home does not need to be some new technology platform that they're learning together. The time to be the best flipped classroom teacher was last fall or before March, or after this is over. This is the time to focus on what our families need. The most meaningful experiences that we can do is to encourage these literacy experiences together, these math experiences together, these science experiences together, because that's where they're going to grow the most. And we know our children and their mindfulness, and families are living in very stressful environments. We need to encourage this togetherness in a positive way that doesn't add stress to families. So this is a way, Elizabeth, you can move to the next slide. This is a way that we have found works for our families and our children. This is an example. They're on Flipgrid, and you can click this code. Now, Krista is on here, and Krista, feel free to unmute your mic and get on. She has her whole, Krista works with the city schools, and she has the whole preschool department and all of their instructional assistants watching Click Clack Moves, a book that was already in their curriculum. They are engaging on our Flipgrid in their own PLC discussions about how would they use this material, how would they adapt it for their learners. You hear them talk about their EL students and changes they may make. They're using this for their PLCs, and you would be welcome to do the same thing. So I don't know, is there another slide after that one, or is that the last one, Elizabeth? Okay, yeah, that's the last one. And this is going to lead us into blended learning. So we have those 3 up available for you. You can click those links, or I also have them linked on the site for this. They get 1 hour of PD credit. I see a note. I'll look at that in just a second in the chat box. So it says, yes, girl, though. So I like the way it starts. It means somebody was feeling it. That makes me happy. So there are 3 of those on there. Please take those resources. Please use them. If you want me to create more, you want Melanie to create more, Melanie's already created one for Brown Bear, and I just haven't had time to format it yet. So we are actively working on these, and that's something that your instructional assistants can do, and that your teachers can do during this time. So thank you guys, and we'll have another fun thing to share after blended learning.
Good morning. I'm Mary Evans, and I'm the former principal at Cumberland Trace Elementary. I currently am working part-time at the Center for Gifted Studies at WKU. Let's see. Well, Elizabeth, I think you're going to have to control it for me. I thought I was going to be able to control it, but it's not allowing me to do that. Competency 3 is to provide personalized blended learning environments. And I'm just going to focus on 2 key words here. The first one being personalized. We've already talked a lot about how important it is to meet the individual needs of students. And technology is a great way to help us do that. It's just one more tool in our toolbox to meet the wide range of individual needs. And then when we think about blended learning environments, we're thinking about that seamless integration of the technology with the face-to-face learning. And we can't just have technology for technology's sake. What's really, really important is the way that the teacher works with the child to do that. And then you see listed here 5 indicators of this competency. And so the next slides that I show, I'm going to address those individually. Next. Move to the next one, please. the first indicator is promote blended learning that's rigorous, developmentally appropriate, and individualized. And you know, rigorous means different things for different children. In a typical classroom, whether it's a preschool classroom or an 8th grade classroom, you can, research says, have a range of 5 to 8 years of levels. And so that's a lot to deal with. And so we have to figure out what each child knows, and then so we can determine what they're ready to learn. And technology is a great way to help us do that. The pre-assessments and the progress monitoring are made easier through technology. Developmentally appropriate, you all gave a great list of words to describe that. Just with technology, we want to always remember the 4 C's. We want technology to be a way to help children collaborate, communicate, be creative, and be critical thinkers. So make sure that those are on your list. And then, of course, the individualized part of this is something that technology really helps us do. It frees up the teacher to be able to work with small groups, but we just want to remember that we don't want children totally working in isolation. If you walk into a preschool classroom and every time you do that, you see children working by themselves and there's no communication or collaboration going on, then you might want to be concerned. Next slide. So the issue for early learning is not whether to use technology, but how to use it most effectively. Early, when I was just starting as a principal and we were just getting technology money, we thought it just needed to go to 4th grade and above, but we now know that it's very important that our youngest learners have access to technology also. Next slide. Effective leaders must promote the benefits of blended learning as a support to young learners working at grade level, beyond grade level, and below grade level. In just a couple of moments, you're going to get to hear from a wonderful preschool teacher, Jennifer Hawkins, and in her classroom, if students are studying the solar system and they're interested in stars, they'll use an app to learn more about the constellations. Maybe in the Block Center, they want to build the Daytona Speedway, then she'll introduce them to Google Earth and they can look down on it and see how to build it. And then they'll use the picture taking feature of their technology to document what they're building. And so they're using technology to extend their learning and follow their interests. And of course, you know, technology is the great equalizer for our special needs children. There's so many features to technology, the assistive and adaptive technology, that really do make inclusion with peers possible for our special needs children. And then the many features that help our dual language learners. I've seen so many children that would not talk to their teacher or their peers, but they would talk into a technology device. Next. I think probably most of you are familiar with the Osmos learning system. There's the Osmo Little Genius that is so great for the younger children, the ages 3 to 5. And what I really love about this is how it is so interactive with the manipulatives. This young man's doing some coding, using coding blocks. When children are using spelling and letters, there's little plastic pieces they use. They can draw with this program. And on the next slide, it shows tangrams. And I've watched children like build a rocket with the tangrams, and then it shows up on their screen. And when it's completed, it blasts off. So it's very interactive. This is a really good example of how objects in the real world interact with the digital world. It's a little bit pricey to get all of the features because you have to have your own iPad or Fire or whatever to use with it. But it's a very interactive program. Next. But the very important thing to remember is technology is not a substitute for the teacher and good instruction. We still need the teacher to be asking the questions, providing the prompts, connecting this to the curriculum. And instructional leaders must make sure that, first of all, teachers have the technology, and then that they have the opportunity to learn how to use it most appropriately. And we all have those wonderful innovators that jump out in front and learn how to use things. And we have to figure out ways in our building that we can free up some time so that they can help the other teachers that need a little bit more support. And then the final indicator in this competency is leveraging technology to create homeschool connections. And teachers do that in so many ways with their classroom websites and digital portfolios and those kinds of things. For years, parents would ask me, how can I help my child at home, particularly with mathematics? And I always recommended Khan Academy because it seemed like they had a video to teach every skill. Well, I just recently learned about Khan Academy for Kids, and you know, it's completely free. The Khan Academy Kids is for ages 2 to 7, so it reaches down to the young learners, and it's very neat in how it develops the adaptive learning path, and you can individualize learning with that. Go on to the next slide. I was interviewing this little girl that was on that slide, and I asked her, what's your favorite part of Khan Academy? And she said, I love the library because she said, when I want to read, I can read, but if I get tired of reading, it will read to me. And she loves all the characters, Cody Bear, and they're just like her best friends she talks about. So it's a wonderful program. And so I'll wrap up here and let Jennifer finish us off.
Jennifer, I'm wondering if you might need to unmute your mic.
I got it. I'm having a little technical difficulties, I'm sure.
We understand. Jennifer, let me touch base and see, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can, thank you.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. So I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about what I'm doing for my students on how to approach just some basic strategies for NTI. And one of the strategies that I'm using is EPIC. And if you'll go to the next slide. A lot of preschool teachers and people in the preschool realm hear about kindergarten readiness every day of their lives. And so one of the things that EPIC can do is it can do these 3 things for your students. It can increase book time with students that don't have access to books at home. It increases the opportunities for you to individualize concept development within libraries and assignments. And it increases print motivation and print awareness in kids. So what is it? It is the largest digital library focused purely for kids 12 and under. You can do many things with it. It increases literacy opportunities for students, and you can track student progress with reading logs using it. Teachers have the ability to individualize it based on students' interests, their needs, any skills that you need to focus on for particular students. And I just think it's awesome. If you'll go on to the next slide. One of the things that I really like about EPIC is that it's downloadable as an app. So parents can download it on an iPad, an iPhone, any Android device, a Kindle Fire. You can access it through the computer, any desktop or Chromebook, and it's 100% free for educators. So like I was using it on a limited basis before within my classroom, but I wasn't really focused on using it with a homeschool connection, which I'm doing now. Um, it includes a wide selection of high quality books that you can use within the classroom or at home. Once the students log in or have the app available to them, I can create reading lists for them based on concepts. So for example, before we began the NTI process within my school, I had already established an assignment based on space in the solar system. So I assigned that to all of my students and they can access that at home. It includes thousands of nonfiction books. A lot of times libraries and homes don't include a lot of nonfiction books, so giving the opportunity for those students to have those available to them. There's lots of popular fiction in there, and students just generally love using the application itself. I included a slide so you could see kind of what the graphics were like. They're very high quality, high resolution books, so students can see them. It includes, if you go to the next slide, it includes read to me books, but it also includes audiobooks. And the thing I like about the read to me books is it highlights the text as it's being read to them. So it shows the students the relationship between language and the written word, which I think is really important. If you go to the next one, yeah, it's arranged. You can search through the library any number of ways. You can use categories, you can search by subject, you can search by reading level, you can search by the type of resource, and there's many other ways that you can search the library to create assignments. If you get to the next slide. All right, so this shows an example of a profile of a student, and it gives you some basic information. It will tell you how many books the child has read, how many minutes or hours they've been on, how many visits they've made, and then it'll tell you under that student's profile which books they've read, if they read the whole book, if they just accessed the book and then closed it out and didn't finish it. It gives you all kinds of information. I just want to reiterate, if you'll go to the next slide, the homeschool connection here. So once they have the app on their device, they don't have to have access to Wi-Fi. So you can access it through the internet on a computer, or you can use it without Wi-Fi as an app. Right now, it's free access for students at home. And I think there's a slide that shows you it's free through June 30th right now. I'm sure, hopefully that will be extended. But if not, it's $5.99 a month. I did find when I was creating accounts for my students that some parents already had the app on a device that they use with their child at home. And if they do, then there's a way that you can connect those to your classroom so that you can see the data for those students. The next slide kind of shows you some data from my class. So I have two classes, a Monday, Wednesday, and a Tuesday, Thursday class. And this is the data and engagement percentage just for 3 days of our NTI for one class and 4 days of NTI for another class. So 31 out of 38 of my students were participating. They read 149 books for 778 minutes. And that's just amazing. There's other things that you can do to highlight that connection. If you have an account, they make it calendars with activities for every day of the month that you can access. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, so this is my class page, and it will tell you everything that you would ever want to know about all of your kids on this page. And there's reports and things you can run also. But basically, it's telling me right here all of the students and their access for the last, well, I could go forever, but it tells me how many books the students read for how many minutes. This is just my general class page. You can also, here's the activity calendar. So this is the activity calendar for April. This is just my general class page. It tells me just general information, what the kids are reading, what are some of the concepts or skills or genres that the kids are using. The class progress, we are up to 917 minutes now. I still have 2 kids I haven't figured out how to put into my classroom that are using the app at home. And then these are the assignments that I have created for my students. Let's see if I can move this. And then I can go into my students and look at their individual logs. I've gotten permission from all of my families to show you their information. Just so this is Andrew's reading log. And it tells you that some of these books he has not completely finished, like Anger is only at 90%. And the number of minutes that he's used. Now I've chosen not to, I'm going to stop sharing. I have chosen not to require students to complete quizzes or things like that, because I feel like the purpose of this is for them to have experiences with literacy, experiences with books, listen to books being read to them. That's what's most important to me. So we don't have quizzes at the end of books for comprehension or any of those types of things. And then, you know, you can use it in the classroom for whole class reading, show it on a display or a smart board. You can use it for small group reading and have it accessible to students for small groups. For older kids, for free reading, they can use it, and then they can research by topics or categories also. And then the next slide gives you, there's a link there that where teachers can get remote access for free.
Jennifer, that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your kids. Everybody give her a thumbs up, right? Because thank you for sharing your kids and sharing that with us. Epic has over 30,000 books and videos, and often these online programs will not have high quality books. Epic has high quality books that the kids are interested in. So what we've created for you here, in the same place that, and these links will work whenever you get to our site or you click on the PowerPoint, you'll be able to get to these links. But we've created, it's a 3 credit hour PD. The videos are probably only like 30 minutes, but it shows your teachers how to use those, that blended learning tool of Epic. I screencast exactly every button you click to create your free teacher account, and that's always free. The educator account is always free. It's free for students to use at home through the end of June, okay? It tells them exactly how to do it, shows them every button to click, shows them how to differentiate and assign different books to different children, and also how a few ways to share access back with their families, so the families know how to download and log in and connect to you at home. So this is, just like I shared the crowd together, this is exactly the same format. It's set up in Flipgrid, and they will create their own Epic account. It also shows crowd. The book 5 Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed, I've written crowd questions for that, and we ask them to choose a book and write interactive read aloud questions with the book they choose from Epic after they make an account. So that's a resource that's there available to you, to your teachers, to your paraprofessionals, whoever you have planning instruction for kids right now at home. But Jennifer, I can't believe your kids were at 197 books in less than 10 days or something like that. that's amazing. So thank you for sharing that with us. And this resource is available to you as, for blended learning. And this is the website where you can find it. Krista wrote a nice note in the chat box I saw earlier about try out their tribe PDs. We have PDs in here, or we call them PDs. They're online workshops. You can use, your teachers can use them during the day. You can use them for ELA credit. However is most meaningful, you can use them for PLCs. We've shown the Crowd and the Epic today, but there are a few more on there that are available on our Tribe EDU website. They're also available on the GREC website. So that's just a link that's for you later.
Okay, so now we're going to ask Elizabeth, will you click on that link? This is the link that has our Google site. We've talked a lot about this Google site. So on this site at the moment, you're going to see the PowerPoint, and after we finish the Zoom call, we're going over just a tab. We thank you for being patient with us, but we'll be putting in the video in case you have folks that you want to share this with in your district and you want them to see the Zoom meeting. Let's click on the competency 1. You'll see a lot of you'll see all of those references that Elizabeth had earlier when she talked, and you'll see competency 2. You'll see those online workshops pull up that Allison had spoken about. You'll see lots of other articles that we think connect to this work that we think might help you in setting your vision. Competency 3, you'll see an article that has both Mary Evans and Jennifer in it that was featured by the NAESP group. And we think you might enjoy that. You'll see even Fred Rogers Institute and a lot of things about using technology with young children. So we will be adding to this. This will be our repository for us to hang things on. And now what we want to do is we want to go ahead back to our PowerPoint. Thank you, Elizabeth. And we have a link in the chat box that we want you to click on and give us feedback. We really want to know about what your needs are and how we might think about that before our next Zoom meeting, April 30th. We have just a few prompts there for you to fill out. We really appreciate you doing that. The next slide reminds us of something that's happening today too, and that is we've had an announcement from KDE. Thank you, Angie Michael, for being sure we knew about this. But today at noon Central or 1 p.m. Eastern, there's going to be an advisory council meeting. They've opened it up for everyone in the state to listen in. We know that the early childhood conference was canceled for June, for we understand why, and that we hope that we find out some more information about how they're still going to support all of us during this time. So we want to be sure that's in our PowerPoint, and you can just Google the Kentucky Early Childhood Advisory Council and find that link as well. Okay,
Put the website link in and your feedback form. You may need to copy them out, but you should have those in the chat box.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. I think it's our wrap up. Yes. So here there are next steps. If you could please get back to us and fill out the Google form with your needs. We have lots of things planned for you for next time, but we can still alter that based on what your needs are for competencies 4, 5, and 6. We invite you to go to that Google site and look around and give us feedback. We love you all. Thank you for allowing us to go over a little bit. I really want to say again, thank you to Allison, Elizabeth, Mary, and Jennifer. You are what made this happen today. Thank you.
I added the sign-in sheet if you arrived late. If you want ELA credit or any other credit, it's in the chat box again.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we have ELA credit available for everything we're doing. And we have it listed on those online PDs about what you do about that. Allison, go ahead.
And don't hesitate to reach out to us with questions. I know we went through that really fast, okay? So we're here for you. So thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. You're the best.